There might be fewer players, but there's never a lack of exciting action. This is the statewide Idaho 8-Man Prepcast with Brandon Baney and Paul Kingsbury.
That's right. It's another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. Brandon Baney with Paul Kingsbury. There's so much action going on this weekend. We needed an extra week to adequately prepare. So apologies for not having a show last week, but there's a lot going on.
There's a ton going on. It's opening week, right? It's opening weekend all over the state. There was three football games last weekend, but this is the big opening weekend all over the state of Idaho for all the games. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, 3 football games last week, none of them at the 8-man level. So everybody's 0-0 to start things off. Before we dive into, we're going to talk today about the media polls that have come out. The coaches poll hasn't been released yet, so all we have to go off of are what the media guys think, and we know they're wrong most of the time, right, Paul?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah. And we'll preview some of the games that we're keeping an eye on this weekend. But real quick, I wanted to hit on 2 quick news items that came across our desk in the last week and a half. The first has to do with 8-man football. Showban was going to try and field the varsity program this year. Optimism was pretty high. They've been one of those programs that struggled with numbers over the year. Well, we found out they're actually not going to have enough kids to play a varsity schedule, which is too bad.
It is too bad. And that's one we saw them, early on in the summer, on some schedules and them saying, we're going to have a team. And we kind of put a little star by it just in case. And, we were hoping that they'd be able to put a team together. And just in the end, they weren't able to. So you hate to see the kids that did want to play lose that opportunity. But in those, we talked about this before, in those small towns and the small schools, you've got to have almost everybody out for a particular sport like football, or else, you get 1-2 injuries and the season's over anyway. So I think they probably just, pulled the cord beforehand instead of getting into maybe week 3-4 and having to quit then and put all the other teams they were playing, get their schedules kind of messed up. So it's sad to see, and hopefully next year they're going to be able to do it.
Yep. And so what was going to be a 5-team Rocky Mountain Conference now goes to 4 with Water Springs, Rockland, North Gem, and Mackey, which is still full steam ahead with a varsity schedule for the first time in a couple of years. So that's good news. So what that does now is creates holes in the schedule for all of the teams that are in that Rocky Mountain Conference. And because of that, we actually picked up, I think, a pretty interesting non-conference game on September 24th. Now, Water Springs is going to host Horseshoe Bend. That's 2 playoff teams from a year ago and 2 teams that we think are going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, and I think they will be pretty good this year. Water Springs came out, surprised a lot of people last year. Some people think that they're going to do big things this year. And, it's wait to be seen. But, a little small private school in the middle of Idaho Falls, it's exciting to see those newer small schools have some success. So, yeah, that's going to be a good game. That was a pretty good pickup for both teams.
Yeah, and so it's a long trip for Horseshoe Bend, but that's going to be a fantastic matchup for sure.
Yeah.
So the other news item I wanted to hit on quickly is switching from football to volleyball. This weekend is the annual Salmon River tournament, the invite that's held at Salmon River High School in Riggins. I got the schedule of games, and I emailed their new athletic director and said, hey, I don't see Salmon River on here anywhere. And she said, yeah, we don't have enough players for a team this year. So we're just hosting the tournament. And that's a big bummer too.
Yeah, that is a bummer. I mean, you kind of just always expect, Salmon River to be in the mix in things. And once again, that numbers bug just hit. Paula Tucker, the AD and coach, moved to council to go there. And, and numbers just in those small towns. Again, it's sad to see, and especially when the school that's hosting can't have a team there. That's too bad. But I'm sure it's going to be a great tournament for everybody else there. And again, hopefully for Salmon River, in the next year or two, they've got, hopefully they have some girls coming up that want to play and they can get that team back.
Yeah. And so, not only was Paula Tucker the AD, but she was the volleyball coach, girls basketball coach.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and she's doing the same things at council now. She kind of picked up 3 jobs there. So
yeah,
good luck to her.
Yes, and the new AD at Salmon River, Brittany Pretty, has been awesome to work with so far as well. So she's doing a great job stepping in to what's a tough situation at Salmon River.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get to the polls, the media polls for football. 8-man, 1A D1, 1A D2. Here are the latest. This was just released like an hour ago. So here is the brand new, hot off the press polls. And again, if you're listening to this, we'll kind of go over the polls audio wise. You can get this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. But if you're watching on the video on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, we actually have the polls up covering our ugly faces right now, Paul.
Yes.
So let's start with this 1A D1 poll. You've got Oakley in the top spot, defending champ.
Yep.
Prairie is second. Raft River third. Notice fourth. Lighthouse Christian fifth. And then Butte County and Clearwater Valley also received votes. What do you think about that top five?
I like it. I mean, it's a quality, strong top five. I think it's interesting that Raft River, the runner-up last year, is third and Prairie second. I think that's a name recognition here in the early season with the preseason poll. The preseason poll last week and then week one poll this week, and no games were played in the classification. So you would think they would stay the same. We saw there's a difference in the 182s, but in the 181s, I think Raft River is a strong choice. Prairie, always a strong choice. But if teams haven't played, when I voted, it was always I always fell back on the previous year because, if your last game was winning the championship or your last game was runner-up, I think you deserve a little bit of credit for that. And then, of course, looking at the previews and seeing what was gained, what was lost. But I think Prairie always gets that name recognition votes when it comes to the early rounds of voting, and it's well deserved. And so overall, I think it's a quality top five. Seeing put that back up really quick.
Okay.
Seeing a Lighthouse Christian in there is interesting. And seeing a Clearwater Valley getting votes, I think that's very cool. They had a really rough year last year. And so coming in this year, they're older, they're wiser, getting those positions filled and guys bigger. You and I talked about it a little bit. I think Clearwater Valley, I think the Rams are going to surprise a few people. Up there.
Yeah, they were picked second in the preseason coaches poll in the White Pine League up north.
Yeah.
So here's my thing, because I am one of the people that votes on this poll each and every week. And so every week I'll kind of give you my picks and how I'm thinking. I'm totally open when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And feel free to let me know if you disagree. You can send an email to Brandon at IdahoSports.com or, leave a comment on the video on YouTube or Facebook, because we want that interaction from the fans. I don't buy into this whole, well, since you were the defending champ last year, you automatically get the top spot.
Really?
I don't believe in that personally. I think I look at, do you have a lot of good players coming back? Because sometimes state champs lose everybody and they're not going to be the number one team. So why start them at number one just as a pomp and circumstance? I don't know. So am I wrong on this?
Are you saying that Oakley doesn't belong there at all?
I'll tell you, Oakley is not number one in my poll. So that's where I want.
And I'm actually going to agree with you to a point on this. I think they deserve, they haven't lost since last year, right? But on the other hand, like I mentioned, if we look at the previews and see who they lost, I think you can kind of gauge that a little bit. If you know that everyone's gone and they're going to be struggling, and if you know that and you still vote number one, I think that's not good. But like I said, in years past, I voted in this poll many, 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 many years before this, and you've got media guys who really they cover a particular area. So you've got guys from Lewiston that cover Lewiston. You've got guys in Southeast Idaho that maybe only cover Preston, Bear Lake, Malad region. And so when they see these teams like Clearwater Valley and these other teams in Oakley, they have no clue. They have no clue, and there's not a lot of research they can do out there. And so they go on. They've said a lot of them just go to IdahoSports.com and look at last year's record and look at things. And but you go on name recognition and you go on gut feeling. And if you don't know the teams, this is kind of what happens. And really with these media polls, it takes 2-3 weeks to really settle in to a solid 1 through 5. Once you start seeing how they're playing, who they're playing, and so forth. But I've always believed that the votes that come from Idaho Sports tend to be the most accurate because we pay attention to the whole state and not just a particular coverage area, which isn't their fault at all. It's just they're asked to vote on a statewide poll when they cover a certain area. So it kind of it's a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and this poll kind of shows that, I think.
Yeah. So I guess the way I look at it, and I'll give you my top 5, Oakley brings back some solid players. I feel like Prairie and Raft River bring back more talented players. And to me, those three teams were all really evenly matched last year. If they all did a round robin, they'd probably all beat each other. So in my poll, and here's my hot take. You ready? I'm going to say it right now. My 1A D1 state champ this year, the Raft River Trojans from Malta. That's my pick. And they have been for 2 weeks in a row now. You see that lone little number one for the first place vote for Raft River? That's me.
All right.
So I've got Raft River 1. I've still got Prairie 2 because I think they bring back a lot of talent. And then I've got Oakley 3rd. It's not a disrespect thing. It's just that I'm looking at overall how many studs are coming back. And Oakley to me is just a half step behind those other two. I've got Notice at number 4. And number 5 in my poll, I have Butte County because I think they're going to win their conference. They were a playoff team last year. Lighthouse Christian, I think, is one of those schools that on name recognition is in the poll right now. They lost a lot, and they might be good, but I think they're a team that's got so many newcomers. It's going to be a work in progress. It's
going to be difficult for the Lions to come back and do what they did last year. I think I'm going to agree with you there. I think in about 3 or 4 weeks, you're probably not going to see them in the top 5. You might still see them get some votes from the Magic Valley folks, but I think you're right. I think that the cream rises and things tend to even out as we go through these polls throughout the season. Yeah.
So I've got Butte County 5th, and I don't know. They seem to be people are sleeping on them quite a bit. I think they're going to be pretty solid this year. They've got a lot of like brothers and cousins, a lot of guys with the same last names.
Yeah, it always has been. It's always been like that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually heading to Butte County to do that game against, I think it's Dietrich, about midway through the season, I think somewhere in there. So it'll be fun to kind of gauge how they are, up close and personal. It's a great press box there in Arco for Butte County. It's got a big porch-like thing all the way around, and it's a good time. It's always a good time in Arco.
Yep. So speaking of Dietrich, let's look at the 1A D2 poll. You've got Cary, the defending champs, first. You've got Dietrich second, Kendrick third, Mullen St. Regis fourth, and Horseshoe Bend fifth. What do you think about these top 5 in 1A D2?
Again, solid top 5. I think I mentioned on the last Prepcast we did for 8-man that I really think the Tigers up there in Kendrick are my favorite to win it this year. Mullen St. Regis, I actually drove through that area for the first time this weekend. Beautiful up there, by the way. It was awesome. But I think they're going to be good. Horseshoe Bend we talked about. Cary, Dietrich lost a lot. Dietrich is bringing some back. When you lose Brady Powers, it's really rough on you when you lose that stellar athlete. But they always seem to fill the gaps. Cary, same way. They lose some guys, but Cary is always tough. Cary is a number 1 right now, maybe, for lack of really knowing anything else. I think it was a pretty solid for 6 guys. I'm curious to know who you voted for. The North Gem and Garden Valley, maybe. I think they were good for receiving other votes. Garden Valley lost a lot. North Gem, I think they might be cracking the top 5 here at some point. But as a top 5, I think you're going to see these 5 teams really kind of sticking there, and maybe the 3, 4, and 5 spot rotating every week somewhere. But overall, I think it was a pretty solid 1 through 5.
Yeah. So in my poll, I did put Cary first because I don't know if anybody's going to be able to stop Connor Simpson this year, the junior running back. He's small, but he's electrifying in the open field, and they've got some linemen that I think can pave the way for him. So of the 6 first place votes for Cary, I was one of those.
Nice.
I had Kendrick second. I'm like you. I'm drinking the Kendrick Kool-Aid this year.
Yeah. I like it. Okay.
You've swayed me. You've swayed me on that.
Was it me? All right.
Yes. And just covering their other athletic programs over the course of the last year. I really like what's going on up in Kendrick. So I've got them second. I've got Mullen St. Regis third. I think they are being a little lightly regarded right now. I've got Horseshoe Bend fourth, and fifth I've actually got North Gem, and they just missed the cut here. They're in the others receiving votes. I had North Gem fifth. You'll notice that Dietrich is not in my top 5.
Wow.
I have to
Blue Devils.
I think Dietrich is probably going to be solid, but part of it is I have to go off of what I've seen in these preseason coaches polls in the conferences. They were picked to finish third in their league behind Carey and Castleford. So I have to listen to that. If the coaches in their league don't think that they are going to be a top 2 team in their conference, I can't put them in the top 5. I can't.
Yeah, and Castleford is one of those that we've heard some rumblings about that could be creeping up into those other votes, maybe crack, into the top 5 by week 5 or 6, possibly, depending on how their season goes. But Castleford, they haven't really made a lot of noise in the past few years with things. So seeing them, being talked about with the coaches in that league, that's exciting for them too. So that, that league down there, it was Carey versus Dietrich for the championship. It's a tough league. And you never know. The great thing about high school sports, you never know how the games are going to go, between injuries. Did his girlfriend break up with him that day and his head is all messed up? You never know what you're going to get with high school players. So, going in, week out, that's where those rankings really come together, is after the voters can see who they've beat, what the point spreads were, and everything else. But I like your votes there. I like your votes. I don't know if I would have been able to not put Dietrich somewhere in that top 5 if I were voting.
Well, I guess I could have, but it's like I would have to put them 5th and then Castleford 4th, and I can't have 3 teams from one league in my top 5.
Happens.
At least
it happens a lot, especially down there. Down there. We'll see. Oakley. All those guys. I've seen some of those polls that have 4 from the same league, and you're looking at your votes, going, "Really? Am I really doing this?" And so you double check them and go, "Yeah, there's really nobody else in the top 5." So it happens. It definitely happens in Idaho.
Yeah. So, and then I said 5th, I've got North Gem, which did not make the official top 5. I think they're going to be a dangerous team this year. And I went out on a limb and said Raft River is going to be your 1A D1 champ. I think North Gem, the small school in Bancroft, is going to do it. I think they're going to be lightly regarded. They're going to come through the playoffs. The big thing is they have a dual threat quarterback who can beat you a couple of different ways, which is always helpful when you get into the postseason. And I think North Gem's going to be battle tested, and I'll say it here. North Gem, mark it down, 1A D2 champs. Over Kendrick, maybe, let's say. You going to write that down?
Got it. Written down. That's a bold choice. I think that's pretty bold. And, and a dual threat quarterback in the 8-man, it's always important to have that. But in the 8-man ranks, it is so huge if you can have a running quarterback, a solid running quarterback, and also one that can throw with receivers. You get that in the 8-man ranks, and you're special. And if they can get some receivers put together that can go downfield and catch, which will keep that defense honest, open things up in the middle. And if you've got a running quarterback, at the very least, he's going to pick up 3-4 yards just to carry up the middle. Get him on the outside, even more. So having a dual threat quarterback, you're absolutely right, especially if he can stay healthy into that postseason and really help his team win. So Kendrick, North Gem, we have that written down. We'll come back to this in middle of November.
Yeah, so let's do it. Let's lock in our picks. I've got Raft River 1A D1, North Gem 1A D2. You've been on record as Kendrick in the 1A D2. Who do you like in 1A D1? Let me put the poll back up for you so you can see.
Won't help. I've got friends at all those places, so it's really hard for me to say. Raft River is going to be a solid choice. It really is. Prairie, if they can really show some dominance up there early on, and we'll see them this weekend. Clearwater Valley, we'll see as well. So I think after this weekend, even though it's the first game of the year, I think we're really going to see what teams are made of, even though it's the first game of the year. So I guess early on, I'm going to say Raft River. I'm going to agree with you on the Raft River.
Okay, all right. You're using me as the human shield here to get all the hate.
Brandon said so. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about it. The 8-man classic coming up this weekend in Middleton. This slate of games is awesome. Let's pull up the schedule here. Where do you want to start? All 4 of these matchups look really fantastic.
Start at the top, 11:00 a.m. Oakley versus Lapway. Oakley coming in, obviously very, very good. Lapway struggled last year after coming off a couple of pretty decent years. Lapway did, and last year not so much. And I'm not sure really what to expect from Lapway this year. So that Oakley Lapway game could get out of hand quick, but it's going to be fun to watch both of them for sure. But even if Oakley's down a little bit, which I'm not sure they're going to be as down as you think, but it's going to be a fun game, a fun opener.
Yeah, I think this game comes down to the battle of the wide receivers. You've got Dace Jones, who's a great wide receiver for Oakley, and of course for Lapwai, Titus Yearout, who is one of the best basketball players in the state and brings size and good athletic ability to the wideout position for Lapwai.
Yep, and you've got to have someone to complement Yearout, and they've had that in the past. And I'm really anxious to see. I mean, I'm a Lapwai fan, always have been, and so I always root for their success. And in years past, it's always been basketball, either boys, girls basketball. And then they come on strong, really behind athletes like Titus Yearout that come in and really lead their team. And that gets the younger kids involved. And because, Lapwai was a basketball town for, decades. And then, have a little bit of success in football and you get those younger kids wanting to play football and then you build your program up. So, Lapwai coming out, I can't wait to see them have success. But I think Oakley might take this one.
Lapwai was picked to finish third in the preseason White Pine League coaches poll. I'm with you. I think Oakley probably is the favorite in this one, and Oakley probably wins just because they have a little more experience coming back. Second matchup, Lighthouse Christian up against Kendrick. Your Tigers, Paul. What do you think?
And I think that this is going to be the big test game for Lighthouse. Like you said, they're what did I think they were number 5 there in the media poll.
Right.
And I think they're a little outranked with that. But it's going to be a good bellwether game for them to come out and say, hey, we can play in this, but coming up against Kendrick, a 1AD2 team, Lighthouse, a 1AD1, on paper, Lighthouse should have the edge there, but it's really going to be very telling to see how Lighthouse does and how they stack up against Kendrick, who's going to come in, ready to pour points on.
Yes. I got to watch on both sides. Clay Silva, the great wide receiver, defensive back for Lighthouse Christian, one of the few guys that is back from last year's team. Kendrick started a freshman at quarterback last year, Ty Cobb, and he's back. He was the White Pine League MVP as a freshman at quarterback. And he's back in the sophomore season, and he's got tight ends and linemen galore to help pave the way for him. So I like Kendrick in this one as well, even though they are the quote unquote smaller school. But,
it won't. I don't think it'll matter.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Third matchup, I think, is the one I'm looking forward to the most. Raft River and Clearwater Valley. We're going to find out real quick what this Clearwater Valley team is all about. Yeah,
very, very quick. And really, I like these games at the 8-Man Classic this year because they're not just – it was almost like, Travis Mader, the AD Upper Prairie, really put all the thought into it and said, okay, we're going to see how – and I don't know how he comes up with the matchups, but he was a genius this year because they're, like you said, they're those games that you just want to watch and to see how Clearwater Valley can come out and compete with the Raft River. I'm not saying that they win. I'm saying if they can come out and compete, I think that would be a win for them because it's not a game that matters, so to speak, in the standings. But if they can come out and show that they can hang with a team like Raft River, I think that's going to do a lot for them, not only their own morale and confidence going in, but also it's going to show the voters, it's going to show the other teams in the state that, Clearwater Valley, they deserve these preseason accolades that they're getting so far.
Yeah, and my preseason title pick, Raft River, I'm hoping has a good showing. I do like them slightly over Clearwater Valley. Rams coach Alan Hutchins emailed me today. He said, hey, can you send me the link for the game that's going to be on this weekend so I can pass it out? Yeah, absolutely. So they're excited up there in Kuski to watch their Rams play here on IdahoSports.com. A guy to keep an eye on for both sides, Dylan Pickering, who's a great running back, linebacker for Clearwater Valley. He made our list of top 10 linebackers in the state of Idaho. Those are all up on our homepage still, by the way, IdahoSports.com. And I think for Raft River, I like Thane Lowmiller, the running back who's going to slide in for Ethan Bernard, and he's got some really good offensive linemen to run. That's the biggest reason why I like Raft River. I think their offensive line might be the best in 1AD1. So
if you've got a guy that can carry the ball, great. But if you don't have the hog mollies up front to open things up, it doesn't matter. And so if you've got those guys that can just manhandle the defensive line and move guys around at will, and you've got a good running back behind them, big things can happen. Watch for big plays every single game from him. And he has to buy those big guys up front a lot of steak dinners if they end up winning the championship. I think that's how it works, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
usually, and then as you get further along, by the time you get to the NFL, your quarterback's buying you like Rolexes and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Our final matchup. Oh, that's the poll. Our final matchup is Glens Ferry against Prairie. Now, I like Thane Lowmiller a lot, but I think the best running back in 8-man, it's either Connor Simpson from Cary or Brody Hasselstrom from Prairie.
Yep. And, Brody Hasselstrom was injured last year, and so this year really coming out full strength right off the bat, really get to see, what he's really like. And so really looking forward to seeing him. Glens Ferry, the Pilots, they've been down a little bit over the last few years. It's exciting to see them in this. We don't get to see Glens Ferry play an awful lot every year. Just because we don't get down there, we don't get to see a lot of those teams they play against. They haven't been going to state where we can see them either. So seeing Glens Ferry early on this Saturday is going to be fun. But seeing Prairie, like I mentioned, sometimes Prairie gets those name recognition votes, and so they could very well come out and show me exactly why they deserved the high ranking that they did in the media poll. And, as the coaches poll comes out too. So that Prairie team, they're always exciting. They're always fun to watch. Coach Hasselstrom always has those guys ready, and he's a fun guy. I mean, he's one of those friends of ours that is very active and involved with us. We email, he emails right back. And so it's a fun game. I get to see a lot of old friends in this 8-man classic from all parts of the state coming in together, guys I've known a long time. And it's going to be an absolute blast. 4 games in a row. Broadcasting those games this weekend from Middleton High School.
Yeah, and that's all going to be on IdahoSports.com. Yeah, Glens Ferry kind of struggled last year, took last place in their conference, and I mean, not a ton really known about them. That they've got just kind of gritty athletes. You see it in basketball and baseball as well.
Yep, you do, and that's they're kind of nestled down there on the Snake River, in between the Magic Valley and Mountain Home, and they're just kind of there by themselves, and so. They're really hidden, and so they could absolutely be a hidden talent, little diamond in the rough, so to speak. But it will really you'll be able to tell this Saturday when they're going up against a Prairie team just how good they are.
Yeah. Other 1A D1 games that might be appealing this weekend. You've got Water Springs traveling to Butte County, 2 teams over in the east that we think are going to be pretty good this year. North Gem is going to be traveling to Grace, kind of the same deal. And those are D1, D2 schools playing against one another. Idaho City and Horseshoe Bend play right away, which should be a pretty interesting matchup in District 3. And then I would also say possibly another great matchup could be, and I say could be, Wallace against Kootenai. Only because Kootenai we haven't seen much of the past couple of years, and it's kind of exciting that they have a varsity program that appears to be going strong. And Wallace seems like they're maybe ready to take the next step forward up north. So
and you hope so. Another game that I was looking at, that Deary-Troy game, it's kind of an early season matchup up there, and they're just 2 teams that, boy, they're just you either see them and they're really good, or you don't see them. It's really rare that you see him kind of in the middle. So seeing a Deary-Troy matchup, seeing Troy, I mean, Troy used to be so dominant up there. Rob Bafus was the coach, and I love Coach Bafus to death. He's been a color guy for me quite a few times up there. And they've just struggled in recent years. And Troy is just a team that I would love to see on the comeback at some point. So I kind of had my eye on that Deary-Troy game to see how Troy was going to be this year.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got Cary, the defending 1A D2 champs, playing Garden Valley, playoff team from a year ago. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention the first varsity football game in Logos history. Saturday at 2:00, they are going to host Timberline from Weippe, a program that went 4-4 last year, made the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. And maybe Timberline, what they did, they didn't have football for a couple of years, came back, played 6-man, then 8-man, and have slowly built up into a playoff contender. Maybe that's the formula that Logos will try to follow.
And I think they have to. The Logos is going to come out this year, and they are not going to dominate, but they're going to play hard, and they're going to play hard every game. Playing on I think a city field there in Moscow. We're going to have a broadcast team at that game. Garrison Hardy and Jason Hansen are going to be video webcasting that, as well as 2 or 3 other Logos games this year. So we're gonna get the Knights. The Knights, help me out. It's the Knights.
Yeah,
the Logos Knights up there. Get them some coverage early on. They're excited. We're gonna be there. It's that first year is always rough, but generate some excitement, get things going, and who knows what can happen 2, 3, 4 years from now.
They're a really big unknown up there. I'll say they were picked to finish 8th in the preseason coaches poll in the White Pine League, but on the ballots I got back, some coaches had picked them as high as 5th, and
Really?
some coaches had picked them as low as 8th. So it seems to be mixed opinions.
That'll be interesting to see that. I mean, you think the coaches really know the teams in their conference best, and so if you got some, 5th, that must mean that they might have some players that they're watching and watching out for, and if they have a great year, who knows what can happen. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's going to be a great opening weekend of 8-man football across the state. And again, we're going to have all 4 matchups of the 8-man classic from Middleton. That's the poll again. Here we go. Oakley, Lapway, Lighthouse Christian Kendrick, Raft River, Clearwater Valley, and then Glens Ferry Prairie. And then we're also going to have that Logos Timberline game on Saturday at 2 o'clock from Moscow as well. So
yes, starting things off, covering 10 8-man teams. I love it. I love seeing that.
And plenty more along the way. If you want to see the schedule for not just this upcoming weekend, but the season, you can just go to our website, IdahoSports.com. Across the top, you'll see game streams. Click on that, and there you'll have the full breakdown.
Done. We have almost everything there. We're still waiting on 2 games for permission so far out of 70 plus that we've got on there. So over the next couple of days, we should have a complete broadcast schedule.
And what's the official count for games here in week 1 of the football season that IdahoSports.com will be broadcasting, either audio or video? 18, 19?
It was 18.
Okay.
We added that Burley game, and that made it right at 18. So it's a big weekend for us here at Idaho Sports. There's a lot to do in between then and now. So getting 18 games broadcasted on the air and in one weekend is no easy feat. But the professionals that we have running these games, I have no doubt it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast this weekend.
A lot of fun. So, and of course, keep checking back to IdahoSports.com for all your scores and schedules and everything like that as well. All right. Well, if we make it through, I'll see you on the other side. All right.
Sounds good to me, man. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Again, you can get this on our website, IdahoSports.com. Across the homepage, there's now on the navigation bar a Prepcasts tab and a drop-down menu. You just click on the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, and you can play it right there. You can download this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also watch the video on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. All right, Paul Kingsbury, I'll let you save up that voice because you're going to be doing a lot of games this weekend.
That's right. La, 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 la.
Stay hydrated, all right?
Stay hydrated, my friend.
Right. Okay. For Paul Kingsbury, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com.